Hello and welcome back to BS Laboratories. Today I'm going to continue the theme of discussing French electronic disco musicians on this channel. Breakbot, a name possibly familiar to a few interested in the French touch genre, while still unfamiliar to many. Breakbot, real name Thibaut Berland, is a DJ, prolific remixer, and musician under the Ed Banger Records label. He got his start in 2006 with a remix of Justice's track Let There Be Light, but is widely known for his 2010 song Baby I'm Yours. Now, across the years, Breakbot has released two studio albums, 2012's By Your Side and 2016's Still Waters, along with a handful of singles and EPs, all with a signature funky disco sound. But this hasn't always been the case. Right at the beginning of his discography lies an EP with an entirely different sound, often forgotten and overlooked by many. This is none other than Breakbot's first ever officially released EP, this being 2007's Happy Rabbit EP. Now, this release has captivated me for years, finding this much later than the rest of Breakbot's subsequent work due to its mysterious absence on streaming services such as Spotify. It has a wildly different sound to the disco funk style he's known for, with Happy Rabbit's tracklist having more of a pronounced electronic sound to it. Upon hearing a Happy Rabbit track juxtaposed to anything released afterwards by Breakbot, you'd be forgiven for thinking these are songs from two entirely different artists. Now, this EP also predates his signing on to Ed Banger, being released by Moshi Moshi Records, which may be one of the contributing reasons to its absence on streaming. So to start, I'm going to be looking at all the physical releases of this EP. Now, the most commonly cited release date for the full EP was the 15th of December 2007. Except like any other album or EP, there are singles released beforehand to tease and promote the full upcoming project. In this case, the two singles released in advance were the title track itself, Happy Rabbit, and the track Summer Party. The Happy Rabbit and Summer Party singles were released together and got their own physical copies sold exclusively in the UK. To start, there was the 7-inch vinyl, released on the 21st of May 2007. Now, according to Breakbot himself, this was his first ever official release under a record label, along with his first ever physical release. This, like the full EP, being under Moshi Moshi Records. He also stated that only 500 copies of this vinyl were ever pressed, making it quite a rare item that I'm glad to have as a part of my collection. I managed to secure my copy on Discogs in January this year for £25. Not a bad price, to be honest. Discogs is one of the only places I've seen it listed, and also where I've gathered most of my information on all the physical releases in this video. Now, I have seen the occasionally scarce listing on sites like eBay and Yahoo Auctions Japan, but Discogs is by far the most reliable if you're looking for any of the physical releases discussed in this video. Now, in terms of the record's design, it has the same distinct album art on every version of Happy Rabbit. That being what seems to be an image of Thibaut's face, decorated with the title in its charming bubbly font, along with stars at the top and bottom and flowers down by his beard. Other than that, it's a fairly simple minimalistic black and white design around the back, complete with unique hand-drawn logos for each single, and has a handwritten credits and special thanks section. All the art here is done by Breakbot himself, along with someone who simply goes by Innie, who as far as I can see has only ever worked on album art for Happy Rabbit. As for Thibaut's involvement in the artwork himself, I'm hardly surprised, as before becoming a musician, he was a graphic designer. Taking a look at the rest of the credits, we can see it was recorded at Studio Goemok, which is the recording studio of Ed Banger Records artist Crazy Baldhead, thanked here as Crazy Bald Dude, possibly an earlier stage name. Also thanked are Innie, X and G, who are most likely Xavier de Rosnay and Gaspar Auger from Justice, as Xavier stated in a recent interview for their latest album Hyperdrama that Thibaut is a friend of his, and presumably Gaspar's, from graphic design school, as they both were also graphic designers prior to making music. Also thanked here are his friends and family. And lastly, there are links to the MySpace page of the Moshi Moshi Records Singles Club and Breakbot's own now defunct MySpace page. Lastly, the vinyl disc itself has the same individual artwork for each single and has Happy Rabbit on side A and Summer Party on side B. Now for the other version of the Happy Rabbit / Summer Party single release, we have the promo CD, also distributed by Moshi Moshi in the UK. Easily the least known and documented version of any Happy Rabbit physical copy. Presumably also released on or around the 21st of May 2007 like the 7-inch vinyl, but is impossible to verify due to it being a promo. Basically meaning it wasn't released to the public, and as the name states, purely for promotion. Likely being sent to broadcasters for radio play, which I doubt this got much of, if any, and any music blogs or outlets for instance. Like most promo CDs, this has a very bland and visually plain design to it, just having a double-sided printed piece of paper as the cover. Of course with the same black and white cover art as the other releases, but on the backside having Breakbot typed in all bold lettering and having the 2 tracks listed. Oddly enough, this time Summer Party is the first track, the only time this is the case, having Happy Rabbit as the second track on this occasion. The disc itself takes on a similar design to the backside of the cover, only missing the timestamps for each track. Unlike nearly all promo CDs, my version doesn't come contained in the usual clear plastic sleeve, but rather the standard CD jewel case more commonly seen. However, this is likely just due to the eBay seller I bought this from losing the original case and replacing it with this one, as I know from the Discogs notes that it usually comes with a wraparound plastic sleeve insert. I honestly prefer the more common and sturdy jewel case anyway. Next we have the 2 CD releases of the full Happy Rabbit EP. This first one being the Japan exclusive version released by the record label Klee, alongside Moshi Moshi Records on the previously stated 15th of December 2007 EP release date. The formatting for this CD is really unique and unlike any I've seen before, with the cover being on what would usually be the back of the case facing vertically, and the back, also facing vertically, being on what would usually be the front of the case where the spine is. Speaking of the back of the case, here we see the track list, all once again with their own unique, charming hand-drawn logos. Honestly, one of my favourite things about this EP's art direction. So the track list includes 6 songs: Happy Rabbit, Stereo Provolone, Summer Party, and the 3 tracks exclusive to this version of the EP, those being Shiny Metal Dude, Chelsea In, and Please Don't. Inside we have the liner notes, which are all in Japanese. Upon translating to English, it reads about the dance electronic music scene at the time, specifically in Japan, and hypes up Breakbot as the next Justice, and on the verge of global recognition in the dance music scene. It also gives a brief description of some of the tracks, describing Summer Party as refreshing and nostalgic, and Chelsea In as being hard-hitting and a promising track for future remixes. The disc itself has a different variation of the cover art on it, with everything being greyed out other than the artist and title name, which stand out in white. A nice touch. Finally, we have a staple of Japanese CD releases, the obi, which means belt, and is a strip of paper that covers the spine of the case. It's always nice to have these included if possible, as they add value to the CD along with completing it. Finally, we have the second version of the Happy Rabbit EP CD, and the final physical release there is to discuss. That being the Australian exclusive version, released by Timber Yard Records sometime in 2008. I can't seem to find the exact date anywhere. Now, despite this being the last version of Happy Rabbit released, it was actually the first version I ever got, managing to snag a copy off eBay back in 2022. So this version actually has a bit of a different tracklist to the Japan release, and a shorter one, only having 4 songs compared to the former's 6 tracks. We have the tracklist as follows: Happy Rabbit, a newly produced version of Summer Party, Iron Zombie, a track exclusive to the Timber Yard release, and lastly, a newly produced version of Stereo Provolone. Looking inside, we have a completely different disc design to every other version I've mentioned so far, and I absolutely love it. This version is by far my favourite of them all. You may be wondering why that is. Unlike the Japanese version, it has 2 less tracks, no liner notes, and no cool obi included. But I'll tell you why this one is my favourite. I said earlier that the hand-drawn logos are one of my favourite things about this EP's art direction. I make a point to emphasise one, since the best part of the art direction for me is the exclusive artwork for this version, which you can see not only on the disc, but also hidden in between the cover art and track list. Just look at this, it adds heaps of character and charm to this release, carving out a little world which fits these unique, wacky, eclectic tracks to a T. We have a luscious environment filled with grass, trees, a large flower, a mountain range, bats in the starry night sky, and a waterfall flowing into a river with a happy fish leaping out of it. We have other wildlife like a huge worm and a buck-teeth horse. I'm kinda shocked we never see the happy rabbit namesake in question hanging out on this artwork. But all this nature and wildlife is contrasted with industrial elements, like what seemed to be a block of flats possibly, a robot holding a massive pencil, which I theorise might be the shiny metal dude in question from track 4 on the Japanese release. Nice of him to make an appearance despite his track not being on this version of the EP. And of course, to cap it off, we have some enlarged food and drink, like this fast food fizzy drink and burger, and an apple almost as big as the horse next to it. Which, by the way, the apple is also alive, because why not? And then we have some more of that lovely, bubbly Breakbot font I mentioned earlier as well. Interestingly, the spine design also differs from the Japan 2007 version also. And hey, if we lift up the CD, we have the shiny metal dude once again hiding underneath it. So that's every single physical release of Breakbot's Happy Rabbit. And I'm glad to finally have them all in my collection after years of seeking them out. Just the idea that I've hunted for all these nearly 20-year-old niche music items barely anyone really cares about is oddly comforting. I get to appreciate and enjoy these pieces of French house and electronic music history that have been largely forgotten about. Now it's finally time to take a look and listen into the actual tracks themselves, starting of course with Happy Rabbit. So ironically, despite this being the opening track, it sounds like it would be perfect for the ending of a movie after the main character gets a happy ending and walks into the distance. This has the usual cheery, upbeat feeling we've come to expect from Breakbot over the years since, and has some nice vocoder vocals and some clean bass. Stereo Provolone. On Stereo Provolone we have that early Breakbot electro twang in tandem with the same cheery vibe from Happy Rabbit, delivering a... There's a spider in my hair, what the fuck? On Stereo Provolone we have that early Breakbot electro twang in tandem with the same cheery vibe from Happy Rabbit, delivering a punchy beat with some glitching in places and a nice laid back feel. As previously stated, this is one of the 2 tracks to have an updated version on the 2008 Timberyard release. Comparing the 2007 and 2008 versions side by side, there are some noticeable differences, beginning with a pitch change, having the 2008 version be much lower, along with being a little fuller due to some more added effects throughout. There's also a clear increase in punchiness in the 2008 version also. Lastly, there's quite a big change in the runtime, with the newer version being vastly shorter, going from 4 minutes in 2007's version to 2 minutes 49 seconds in 2008's. Summer Party. Once again, we have another chill track you'd expect to hear as a closing cooldown track. This song has a simple beat with some added vocal chops throughout, a staple of this era of Breakbot. Much like Stereo Provolone, this also has a 2008 updated version, once again lowering the pitch, but also adding way more layers of instruments and sound effects to it, and even an entirely new vocal segment, completely changing the tone to a more funky, lively one. This isn't criticism, by the way, on the contrary, it's an improvement to the original, and I prefer the 08 re-edits of both Stereo Provolone and Summer Party. Playing them both side by side, it's a noticeable change and one I think it needed. Interestingly enough though, compared to Stereo Provolone, the updated version keeps the exact same runtime of 3 minutes 29 as the original. I'm Zombie. Next we have the 2008 Timberyard releases one exclusive track, and one of my favourites that never fails to pull me in and get my feet tapping and head moving. Iron Zombie begins with some crickets chirping and a car engine starting up, then followed by a clanging sound. This beginning section brings a really strong visual into my head of the back of a fast food restaurant at night. A long, large, old American coupe starts up and drives away from its temporary parking place. An employee then walks outside to throw the rubbish into a large industrial bin, but then gets distracted trying to slam the door on an old junk dishwasher with a broken latch. The song fades in and we get some harsh, punchy, funky instrumentals with some vocal samples and some choppy, disjointed sound design, which gives the track a bit of a hectic edge. Me pretending I know the first thing about music production or composition aside, I just like the noises. They sound good to my ears. Shiny Metal Dude. My other favourite track on this EP, the first of 3 tracks exclusively on the Japanese Klee CD. This was my introduction to this EP as it was the first pre-Baby I'm Yours Breakbot song I ever heard, courtesy of a man dancing to it in a New York subway station. Easily the funkiest and catchiest track of the bunch. This is for sure what I'd play first to anyone if showing them this era of Breakbot. I will admit, I wish he would do something with this same level of energy again in his modern era, but hey, artists and their sound change over time. Chelsea Inn. Going from the most funky track in the EP, we now go to the most abrasive electronic track. Chelsea Inn goes for a balls to the wall approach, all out electro noise crafted into a nice hit of energy to spice up your listening. Presumably named after a hotel, judging by the Inn title and its fancy font logo. I imagine it is a very hectic, messy, noisy and chaotic hotel run by people who are either too exhausted or hungover to care about the quality control and a calm atmosphere, and where noisy, partying guests blasting tracks like Chelsea Inn all night don't match the probably posh exterior of the building. See, if a song crafts this much of a strong image, it proves it has tons of character to it. There's also a demo version of this song found on the earlier mentioned defunct Breakbot MySpace page. This version's slimming down the crunchy, bit-crushed approach and going for a more funky bass-filled, slightly lower pitched sound than the final product. The demo is significantly shorter than the finished product, coming in at 2 minutes 8 rather than the end product's 3:42. Surprisingly, I think I slightly prefer the demo version. Please don't. Last but not least, we have the final track of the Happy Rabbit EP. This one goes for a slightly somber and understated play on the formula of this release, still with its own funky emphasis and glitchy vocals and sharp punchy hits. But now sounding like it's finally starting to wind down after the constant buzz of energy in the prior tracks. This track would complement a relaxing drive or passenger window daydreaming session nicely. Now that was a look at each track on the Happy Rabbit EP, but there's more to this electro style era of Breakbot than just these 6 songs. So, as an extra bonus feature, I'll be digging through the entire early years of Breakbot, as this distinct sound in this particular stage of Tibbot's career doesn't start or end with Happy Rabbit. To begin with, we'll start with Penelope Pitstop. Released in 2009 as a part of a compilation album titled Edges, A New French Electronic Generation, this would be the last Breakbot track ever released with this type of sound. As for next year, in 2010, we would see the release of Baby I'm Yours, which to this day is his most popular song. Rather fittingly, this electronic sound has come to define Breakbot in the 2000s. Yet, in the 2010s with his switch to a more new disco style sound, that would be what would come to define him for the next 2 decades to follow. Also, the name of this track is named after the wacky racist character Penelope Pitstop. Now, the actual track itself is bombastic, funky, and full on, while also having an unmissable crunchy electronic core. Like many tracks of this era, it has a second version, that being the MySpace version, that is actually quite a bit different to the final release. The MySpace version packs more of a punch, more noise, more distortion, and more intensity behind it. The final version, as well as being 5 seconds longer than the MySpace version, goes for a more polished, smooth sound, which, depending on what you want out of a track from this era of Breakbot, can either be a good thing or a bad thing. But this steer into a smoother, funkier feel is indicative of what his future music's overall direction would become. As we've seen the end of this electro breakbot era released post Happy Rabbit, it's time we go right back to the beginning of this same era to explore breakbot's early tracks released pre-Happy Rabbit. Earlier I described Happy Rabbit as his first ever officially released EP and first ever official release under a record label, which is true. But I never said his first ever pieces of music. That is what I've unofficially dubbed the Breakbot MySpace collection, and what we'll be looking at now. Before Breakbot had officially released music under record labels, he would simply release tracks on MySpace. Turns out the defunct MySpace page was pivotal and the seed in which Thibault's career would grow from. Although, during a server migration, MySpace would end up losing all pre-2016 data, including 50 million songs and over 200 terabytes of data. Yet thankfully we have these early tracks that were found and uploaded elsewhere before it was too late. Baghdad Gangbang. I'll get this out the way first. Yes, that is the track name. And no, I don't know why. As I previously stated, Breakbot began making music in 2006, with his first remix being of Justice's Let There Be Light from that year. But he was making his own original music around that time as well. The track was released around the 2006 to 2007 time period, and a lot of these tracks don't have a concrete date. This track is pure, loud, shouty electro, and begins with a kick-ass intro, which is hard to prepare for, especially since this track is so damn loud. As you'd expect, this track is relatively basic. This track, however, being an early Breakbot song, of course has two versions. This being the extended version, being just over a minute longer at 3 minutes 18, as opposed to the shorter version's 2:13. This version also has a calmer and more understated intro, before throwing you into the noise. And like many of these tracks with multiple versions, it's in a different key, with the extended version being in the higher key. Scientologue. The name of this song seems to be the French translation of Scientologist, and was released somewhere around the 2007 to 2008 timeframe, much like Baghdad Gangbang, and is quite distorted and loud, mainly due to poor audio quality from the original MySpace upload. Honestly, I find this track super catchy and is probably my favourite of the Breakbot MySpace collection, and is complete with the usual chopped up samples most of the 2000s Breakbot tracks tend to feature. Still way too loud though. Hot Pop Corn Dog. I've seen the title of this track formatted many different ways, so take your pick. The only consistent thing is the mix of upper and lowercase letters. This song was released in 2006 and completes the trifecta of loud, distorted MySpace tracks. And I will say I really enjoy the simple yet abrasive noisiness of them all. It really adds to their charm. Listening to this, I can hear the same sound qualities as those in the Let There Be Light remix from the same year, only with a lot more polish and significantly higher audio fidelity. Okay, now we've reached the final two tracks I'd like to talk about in this video. These tracks are shrouded in complete mystery and have not been released by Breakbot in any official capacity. Not on MySpace, and certainly not under any record label. The most these have had is some play in Breakbot live shows from many years ago. So what mystery tracks could I be talking about? American Love. First up is a track supposedly titled American Love. Why supposedly, you ask? Because the origin of this track lies in a single YouTube upload from the 15th of July 2013 by the user Alessandro Parlatore. In the title and comments of this upload, Alessandro provides some valuable information. Firstly, that it is an unreleased track, we know that, and that it's from 2007 specifically. Judging by the distinct sound and production style, it's unmistakable as a Happy Rabbit era track. From the drum beats, chopped vocal samples and sound effects, some of which I recognise from other tracks such as the 2008 Timberyard Records version of Stereo Provolone, and the 2008 Breakbot remix of the track Sweet Sensation.
Would you try to sing
Other key info we can gather from the comments is that Breakbot himself apparently played this at his party in Italy in 2008, and actually gave him a CD with, I quote, a couple of unreleased tracks on it. Now, I'm going to guess this was a private party Breakbot was hired to DJ at, since this is the only upload of this song anywhere on the internet as far as I can tell. But what really sparked my interest is the mention of unreleased tracks, plural, not just this one. Unfortunately though, despite some asking, he has never actually uploaded any other unreleased tracks, and the account has been completely inactive since January of 2015, meaning these other mystery unreleased tracks, of which how many is also a mystery, will forever remain on this alleged CD from 17 years ago. Honestly, such a shame. Although, I'm yet to mention the elephant in the room when it comes to this song, the undeniably striking resemblance to the track 1 out of 2 from Breakbot's debut 2012 album, By Your Side. In fact, the image Alessandro chose to use for this upload is the Breakbot action figure from the 1 out of 2 artwork. But just listen to them both side by side. This is obviously an early demo of what would eventually become 1 out of 2. I've come across some who question the authenticity of this track. For me, there's no question it's a real work of Breakbot. Since 1, I've already pointed out the clear as day Happy Rabbit era production sound, and even cited examples of effects used in other Breakbot works from said era. And 2, Breakbot music from the 2000s is such a niche thing to try and fake. Not to mention to create this backstory with the CD at the 2008 presumably private Italy party. So I think it's more than fair to take Alessandro at face value here. Coachella 2012 mystery track. For the final track of this era, we have the most mysterious of them all. One that doesn't even have an ounce of context to it till this day. At least American Love has a full, decent quality upload of the track, and a backstory surrounding its origin and how the uploader procured it. This track, however, has none of that. Not even a known name, leading to me referring to it as the Coachella 2012 mystery track. Fairly self-explanatory name, which also indicates to its first and only appearance. Back at Coachella 2012, Breakbot played a track during his DJ set, which sounds unmistakable in terms of its sound as a product from this era, and was no doubt created around the same time frame as all the other tracks I've included in this retrospective. Seen in the video Breakbot Coachella 2012 Weekend 1 by YouTube uploader MBL SVG, uploaded on 22nd of April 2012, we can hear there's some kind of vocal sample used that says the word boogie. Now, whether that is actually on top of the instrumental in the original demo file, or specifically edited in there as a part of this DJ mix, is also unknown. As it stands, that's about all there is on this track, sadly. Since I've now discussed the history of this unique, underappreciated and legendary EP, the other weird tracks and demos of the time, along with their MySpace cohorts, I can safely say this music is something special to me. It represents a time when the internet was a bastion of creativity and soul, where you could truly express yourself, broadcast yourself, and be yourself. Before it was a corporate playground of AI, censorship, and doom scrolling. The playful sound, charming artwork, and cheeky sense of style this EP has is honestly refreshing. People have asked Breakbot in Reddit AMAs if he'd ever bring Happy Rabbit to streaming or a possible new vinyl release. A very small handful of people, including myself, want to see this music make a return in some way. My wish and ideal scenario would be to see a Happy Rabbit Anniversary Edition for its 20th birthday in December 2027, including all tracks from both the Japanese and Australian versions of the EP, the newer 2008 versions, and any demo versions, but not stopping there, also including Penelope Pitstop, every MySpace era track and unreleased demo. That includes American Love and the Coachella 2012 mystery track. The definitive version of Happy Rabbit and the ultimate tribute to 2000's Breakbot. Much like the 10th anniversary edition of By Your Side we saw back in 2022, which included new unreleased tracks and demos and was almost perfect. I say almost as its confusing omission of the great Japanese CD bonus track Peanuts stops it from being a perfect 10. Lastly, I want to give a mention to two people who've been instrumental in preserving this era of Breakbot history, and allowing me to even be able to learn about it and become fascinated with this music to begin with. Those people being Crystal Force on YouTube for digging through MySpace and finding these old songs and demos and uploading every single Happy Rabbit song and their multiple versions online and in high quality along with download links. And Finley Gomez for compiling all these tracks into a 10-year anniversary edition back in 2017, along with cataloguing the entire Breakbot discography in immense detail in his Breakbot tracker, as a part of a larger Ed Banger Tracker Google Sheets document. Without these resources provided by both of them, this video would be nowhere near as thorough as it has been and likely wouldn't exist in the first place. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that bullcrap, and I'll see you again next time.